Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legend of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we have some more cards revealed. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like a champion is forthcoming today, but this should mean that tomorrow, surely tomorrow, we'll get our first glimpse of a Bandle City or other champion. But let's first dive into these cards, and we start with a Targon card. A 4-mana Targon card, slow speed, grant 2 allies +2/+2. Now the problem with this, I'm sure most of you already know what the problem with this is, but of course, it's slow speed. And when you are slow speed with this kind of effect, it doesn't help that much, because your opponent will often have a response to you and kill one of these units, and then you've paid 4 mana to only grant potentially 1 ally +2/2, or potentially 0 allies +2/+2. So I just don't think, unfortunately, that this is worthy of seeing play, because it's just too slow. Now it is interesting how it works with Taric. I don't know how it would work with Taric. Would you copy it onto the same 2 allies, potentially? I don't know. But I think it's just a bit too slow, unfortunately. Furious Feyfolk is a 7-mana Bandle City Piltover and Zoned Fey with quick attack, a 5/4. When I'm summoned, if you've dealt damage to the enemy nexus 4+ times, grant me impact 4 times. So we know from yesterday that impact can stack, and I think that it has been confirmed that this essentially would mean that this would deal 4 damage like every time it attacks and strikes. So let's think about this then. So it's a 7-mana 5/4. You have to have dealt damage to the enemy nexus 4+ times to grant it impact 4 times. Now dealing nexus damage 4+ times, depending on what deck you're in, but particularly like mushrooms and the like, shouldn't be too hard. It really shouldn't be that difficult. So we have to come down to essentially evaluating, I think, for the decks that this card is going to see play. Obviously, you're only ever going to put it in decks where you can almost guarantee you're going to get the impact 4 times. So is it worth playing a 7-mana 5/4 quick attack with impact 4? That is dealing 4 damage to the enemy nexus, which is kind of a decimate, but the problem with impact on these high cost cards is that you have to attack and strike, I think, which isn't a guarantee that that's going to happen, and it is only for 4 damage. So I think that this probably won't make sense, but it is dual region, and that, gives it more flexibility. And if there is like an impact deck, we don't know yet if there is going to be an impact deck, and if there is, then maybe this makes more sense, and then it could be better. But from what I know right now, I don't quite think that this is good enough to see play. But if there is a strong impact deck that wants this kind of effect, then it is possible that this could make sense. We have Hungry Owlcat, which is an Ionian Bandle City Fey, 1-mana 2/1 with Spell Shield. Very simple card, 1-mana 2/1. Bandle City Ionia, Spell Shield. I mean, it's fine. I think you'll often have better things to play than this. Elusives come to mind. And I don't think the Spell Shield is, good enough. Like on something small, you don't really want Spell Shield. We've kind of seen that with the Poro, that the Poro goes on like that. Babbling Balladeers, that's an interesting name, is just a Bandle City card, a Yodel, 3-mana 2/4. When I'm summoned, create a Hungry Owlcat in hand. Oh, so this creates one of them. Oh, this isn't even a card you can play. I didn't even notice. So you can't even play this card. So when I'm summoned, create a Hungry Owlcat in hand. So you get this. But why is this Ionian then? Why is this dual region if you cannot? I mean, maybe there'll be an Ionian card that can also create this, but that's kind of weird. Because this one is only Bandle City. 3-mana 2/4. When I'm summoned, create a Hungry Owlcat in hand. I mean, any card that creates you a card in hand is fine, but 2/4 is just not a good stat line. There are plenty of cards that have this kind of 3-mana 2/4 stat line, and they very rarely are good. So, you know, I just don't think that this will be good enough to see play. Like, it's an okay card on its own, but I think, again, you'll just have better options. Loping Telescope is a 2-mana Bandle City Targon card with play. Manifest a random celestial that costs 3 or less epic or multi-region follower. Well, I need to go to Twitter then, I think, to try and find out what manifest means, so bear with me. And so here is manifest, a new keyword. Create in hand one of 3 randomly selected cards. Random celestial that costs 3 or less epic or multi-region follower. So, would this go on like old cards? Create in hand one of 3 randomly selected cards. I don't know if manifest will go in there, but anyway, I don't know if manifest will be applied to like the old invoke things. I guess invoke is good enough, so they don't need to. So manifest, create in hand one of 3 randomly selected cards. Manifest a random celestial card, so you don't need to put random in there because it's in the keyword. Manifest a random celestial that costs 3 or less, epic or multi-region follower. So do you get like a choice of like 1 celestial that costs 3 or less, 1 epic card, and 1 multi-region follower? Is that what this is? Is that what this does? Or is it like, you know, you can get 3 celestials, you can get 3 epics, or you can get 3 multi-region followers? I don't know. I think it's 1 of each. And then you choose from the 1 of each. And it gives you the card straight away, and it's a 2-mana 2/1. I mean, yeah, that seems okay. It seems okay, I guess. I'd put like, how would I rate this card? Let's go back to Mobilytics. How would I rate this card? This, like, I compare this card to like Avaros and Sentry. And Avaros and Sentry is one of those cards, you know, and it has a sort of similar kind of deal. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that gives you a card. This happens on play effect rather than it having to die, the Avaros and Sentry, which, you know, can matter sometimes, because if you can't manage to get rid of your Avaros and Sentry and it's just sitting there, that is quite annoying. Or if it's later on in the game and you're having to wait to actually draw that card, that can be somewhat annoying as well. But the draw a card is generally better than like getting these random cards, so it's probably slightly weighted towards Avaros and Sentry being a bit better, but, you know, that doesn't make this a bad card. Probably means that this is a fine card, but Avaros and Sentry is one of those cards that you put in your deck, kind of just, you know, you just put it in there. You know, like, you're just missing a 2-drop, and so you put it in there, rather than it being, like, anything really good. And that's mainly, I think, because Freljord doesn't have a lot of card draw, and so if you're in a Freljord deck, you know, you might need it, whereas Targon and Bandle City do have card draw. So I feel less good about this card overall, probably, but it does have some synergies with things like Zoe, and it's not a bad card, so it's possible you could go for something like this. I think it'll probably be fine. And Yordle Bandle Commando is a Yordle as well. Just Bandle City, 2-mana 1/2, elusive. Nexus Strike, create a Hungry Owlcat in hand. So again, another Hungry Owlcat. Now this is a Nexus Strike effect. It's a 2-mana 1/2. We've seen with Young Witch that a 2-mana 1/2 elusive, you know, often will hit their face. Possibly multiple times. But is the payoff worth it? And the answer to that question, I think, is right now, I don't know. It's okay. But elusive decks, you know, when you think about elusive decks, you often think about them just punching you in the face as much as you can. You know, just going and hitting your face as many times as you can and just going for it that way. Whereas this, you know, will give you this 2/1 for 1 mana, which is more of like a value-oriented approach, which, you know, isn't generally what elusives want, like as an elusive deck. Young Witch kind of bucks the trend because of its, you know, very unique effect, the support effect. So it can go in both elusive decks and non-elusive decks just because of the effect that it has and its combination with Challenger and Vulnerable. Whereas Bandle Commando is more sort of generic, like value Whereas I think most elusive cards don't necessarily want that. But of course, anything like this, you know, it does have some synergies, as I mentioned. Stuff like Zoe, stuff like Victor is another one, you know, that do benefit from like having different cards. Pursuit of Perfection if you really want to go for it. But I'm not, again, these cards, I'm kind of a bit underwhelmed by. I don't think that either of the two cards that create the Hungry Owlcat will necessarily be worth it. Personally, just because Hungry Owlcat is like it's a very meh card that's like, okay, great, you know, sure, whatever. Like it's meh, very meh as a card to be creating in hand. So that's what's, I think, putting me down about these cards. Battle Bonds I just don't think can be good because of its slow speed. You know, we've seen Battlefield Preparations, which is the 1 mana slow speed to grant something 1/1. You know, no one has ever played that card. And to me, this kind of falls in a similar category. Furious Faefolk and Loping Telescope, I think, are the only two that could see play. So let's give them some rating. So Battle Bonds, I would give like a 3. Furious Faefolk is probably the most interesting one. But I still am not certain about it. So I'm going to give this like a 5, 5.5. But it could, like, if there is a champion that wants impact, you know, like you have to have hit the enemy nexus so many times with impact or something, then, you know, maybe this gets better. If there is an impact synergy deck, then it's possible this is going to be better. So that could go up. But right now I'd give this like a 5.5. Babbling Balladeers. If this was a 3/3, I'd feel just much better about it, I think. I'd be like, oh, that's a card that's probably like not great, but like, you know, it's okay. But because it's a 2/4 and I just don't believe in the 2/4 stat line a lot of the times, I'll probably give this like a 4, like, you know, a 4, 4.5. Maybe this is your average 5, right? Like not good enough to see play, but like, yeah, this is a 5. Loping Telescope, I think, is a bit better. I think this is a 6, but again, I think it's just below like where you're gonna be. Like if you're in Targon, are you putting this over Mountain Goat that can also create cards for you, but as a 3/2 instead? You know, and it's more of a threat itself. Probably not. And if you're in Bandle City, you know, hopefully you'll have better things to do as well. Especially because it's dual region, a lot of the Bandle City cards are. So, you know, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a full Bandle City deck. So, yeah, Loping Telescope, I'd give like a 6. And Bandle Commando, again, it has elusive, so that always gives it some chance of seeing play. We've seen, what, 2 elusive cards from Bandle City, so I think this is probably like a 5.5 again. If there is a lot of elusive support within Bandle City, again, this could go up. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Right now, I'd give this a 5.5. And that's the cards for today, it seems. And the keyword. So Manifest looks like a thing that could happen as well. A Targon type keyword. But yeah, with that said, thank you so much for watching and have a really nice day.